Well, howdy again, friends. How's it going today? Well, this video, I guess, will be aimed towards advertisements and how we're all being suckered. I don't really know how to start it or what to title it. It's just more of a matter of... on one hand, I'd love to say that the advertising agencies are to blame, and the people who are trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and telling us about things we don't need and making us feel guilty and insecure about ourselves. It's partially our fault as well, because in today's world, anyone can go down and buy a book about how people fool each other, or a book. There are plenty of books dealing with how humans convince each other, or argument, or putting it plainly, there's plenty of information to know how you're being suckered if you're willing to look at it. And I think that a lot of people just don't want to look at it. Once you start to find out how easily people are manipulated into buying things that they don't need, then you realize that maybe you were one of the suckers. And I think all of us, at one time or another, were the suckers. Any of us who grew up in watching television as a kid, you're well aware that, I want that toy, I want that toy. And that's what kids do. But, I'd say about 5 years ago, first off, when we talk about, like, there's that show that came out, Mad Men, years back. And it kind of glamorized the ad industry. But it also showed what scumbags they really are. I didn't actually watch the show myself, but just knowing that it was based on the premise of people trying to fool each other into buying things. It seems that some people somehow celebrate that. To go to the Super Bowl, for example, when the Super Bowl comes, I've heard so many people say, well, I don't really care much for the Super Bowl, I just like to watch the ads. That is being played, that is being suckered. But also, at the same time, it's entertainment. So if you can turn advertisement into entertainment, then you can convince people to laugh and buy things they might not need. But to me, ad men are bottom feeders. Anybody who's in the advertising industry, they're bottom feeders. They are, they're out there to convince you to get something that you probably don't need. Now the problem is that a good product sells itself. Okay, a good product, a good food, something that's that people actually need. They will go out and seek it. But the things we don't need, they have to be impressed upon us to convince us that we need them. Some particular cell phone holder or the latest and greatest gadget. Whatever it is. And but I canceled my cable years ago, and when I did, looking back on it, and looking back at just how the commercials might be playing in the background and the TV's just going, there's so many houses where the television just goes all day and the commercials are on at least, 20% of the time, and anybody in the room is being subconsciously and consciously affected by that garbage. But even if you're not convinced to buy it, it's annoying just to even have it present, at least to me. One of the things is that, for example, you wake up in the morning and you turn on the TV at 10 o'clock and any network or cable channel, and let's say half the show that you're watching is consumed by commercials. And what are those commercials? Well, first you watch a commercial that's 5 minutes long that tells you all about how great this drug is. And it shows somebody running in a field with flowers and butterflies, and, oh, you can improve your life with this drug. And then the very next commercial is for some, lawsuit agency, these lawyers, have you been harmed by this medicine? Call us now. So here you have, a 5-minute commercial of somebody telling you, take this drug, take this drug. Then the next commercial is, hey, did you take this drug and it fucked you up? Here, let us help you. It's all about getting money from other people. Pharma industry is horrible. Pharmaceuticals should never be allowed to advertise, as far as I'm concerned, because it's convincing people that they have illnesses that they don't really have. Are you feeling a little bit tired sometimes? Do you have a bad moment now and again? Take this pill and you'll feel great all the time. And people actually believe that crap. But pharma is just pushing their shit down everybody's throats, and they always have been. But here's the thing. It's not just the ad agencies that are to blame. It's the people. We hold all of the responsibility as consumers to educate ourselves about the things we consume. And most people won't even research even one food they might eat every day. And I can admit that I'm guilty in many aspects too. Sometimes you just don't want to know. It's almost like looking to see if a product is manufactured with good practices. And you hear all this talk about buy American, and then you find out that these buy American items or made in China and then brought over to assemble, and it's all garbage. You have to look at the price of something and see, and we have become demanding consumers, demanding cheaper stuff. So we complain because of the slave labor and the low wages. We complain because of the shoddy workmanship and the crappy products that we don't need. But at the same time, we want them cheaper. We don't want to pay more. And the only way to make something cheaper is to pay the employees less and to skimp on the quality. And this is why today so many people love vintage items and goods. For example, as a carpenter, my vintage tools are epic. I mean, all my old chisels, they're perfect. You buy a new chisel, it'll rust out in no time. I mean, the metals and quality. I'm into stereo equipment speakers. All my best stuff is from the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, mostly 70s and 80s. And today, if you want to get that same quality, you have to pay 10 times more than you would have back then, because there was so much competition. Because let's say back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was a lot of competition with new items to try to get the greatest. So a lot of these places, say like Sansui in Japan or Pioneer, they would make these huge flagship receivers with these awesome stereos and sell them with a very small markup above what they actually paid to get it done. I'm making a video. I'll be out in a few minutes. And even when I tell them I'm making a video, okay, where was I? Rewind. The stereos that were made back then, they were sold at just enough markup to try to get their name brand out there. And after that, of course, people can raise it to what they want. Nowadays, people are making things that they think that you need, that they're telling you need, and they can charge whatever they want. And in pharma, I mentioned that because of that guy who recently, bought the rights to this life-saving drug, and he marked it up 5,000%. Yeah, he marked it up 50 times, and it was $750 per pill. It's raised this big stink in the media, but it really showed how people will really choose greed. Even if they're already rich, they will choose making more profits over human life. And that to me is sickening, and that has to stop. But it's not going to stop because we ask it to stop. The problem with ads is that you can't tell the government to regulate how people do business. You can't say, you need to limit these ads, because that interferes with the freedom to do business the way you like. We can't blame the consumers, we can't blame the people who sell it, the ad people. We can only blame society as a whole for not educating ourselves better. And so the thing about it is, the thing about ads is most of them make you feel unworthy. And it's especially bad with cosmetics ads and things like that. They want women to think that they're not pretty enough. And women are pretty enough. You don't have to pile makeup on to look beautiful. But that's what they've told us. They tell us you need tucks and you need to have a facelift. And all this is garbage and augmented breasts. I mean, if you really need to change your body to feel good about who you are, I'm not going to point the finger and say that's wrong. Because for some people, they have very serious self-esteem issues, and that helps them. So if that helps them, so be it. But the point is that the only reason that works is because society has told them that it will work. That they've been convinced that larger breasts really mean I'm prettier. Or that changing how my face looks will make me more attractive and acceptable. That's just part of it's the symptom of the problem of the way that we're frowning upon ourselves, that making ourselves look bad. It's preying upon our own low self-esteem that we all have to an extent. I mean, the opposite end of that and the extreme is to become a sociopath or a psychopath and not give a shit what anybody else thinks, But the thing about when you're buying things, there's nothing wrong with buying clothing that you enjoy. If it's comfortable, let's say, if it fits right and it makes you feel good about it, the material's strong. So it's not about how much you spend on your clothing, but it's a huge difference to buy, say, some Gore-Tex jacket that'll keep you dry and warm in all climate, and just buying a cheap Chinese t-shirt that has a label on the front and selling for a company. The thing is, the advertising agencies know that the best way to advertise is to have you advertise for them. So when you're wearing a Tommy Hilfiger shirt that's just a t-shirt that has Tommy Hilfiger printed on the front, these are garbage clothes. I mean, most of these clothes are trash. I see them at Goodwill all the time, you know, and you see how the material, you know, ends up being crappy material, shoddy workmanship. The thing is, you're buying for a name. If you're buying for a name brand instead of just buying for the quality of the clothing itself, then that's when the problem happens. But this is everywhere. We have become advertisements for companies, for, I mean, you name it. We're all advertising for something. We're like walking advertisements. Even if you're wearing let's say a hat that has pins on it. I have music, you know, pins on my hat, and I'm advertising for those bands. But here's the difference. I'm showing that this is something I enjoy, that I'm into. If you're into that, we could discuss that or relate to it. I'm not promoting the band. I'm showing what kind of a person I am. And that's kind of what I wanted to define. The difference between dressing a certain way or being a certain way because we want others to know who we are, and dressing a certain way because we want others to think we're one of them. And in school, this is where the problems always start, you know. Everybody's wearing these, you know, when I was a kid, what was it? Banana Republic shirts, and Hobie Team Extreme shirts, and Vans, and Keds in the 80s, you know. All these things were what the cool kids were wearing because that's what was cool. Looking back, those were the stupidest clothes I'd ever seen in my life, but people thought it was cool. So I think it's up to us. The solution is simple. Buy what you need. We're not going to change the way that the world advertises, but if we as individuals teach our children that they don't really need these things, I mean, instead of just not buying my kids a toy that they see an ad for, which my kids rarely see toy ads because we don't have cable, and we don't generally watch TV. I have ad blocker on YouTube, and so I don't see a lot of ads. So when I do see an ad, it drives me nuts. I mean, I got to turn it off right away. It's like that annoying, and I realize, you know, how commercials were always louder than the background, and they actually had to pass a law a few years back to keep them at the same level as the show you were watching, because all of a sudden commercials come on, it's just blah, 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 cranking and blasting, and it is partially our responsibility to turn off the TV. It's our responsibility to look at the thing we're about to buy and say, do I really need this? I mean, personally, I like secondhand stuff. I've always enjoyed getting something that's quality, that I know works, that I don't have to buy into the system, that I don't have to buy something brand new just to have it, you know? Like, buying a brand new car, I mean, just for the sake of driving it off the lot and having it lose half its value, is mostly for the posterity of saying, I have a new car, you know? It's not a necessity, it's not a need, but the justifications we hear are like, oh, well, I can be guaranteed it won't break down, or if it does break down, then it's warranted for the first couple of years, but overall, a person always knows they pay more in the end for the new car. But it's all about that status, and status is what we have found to be it's more important that status is related to how we look than our actual behavior, and that's a pretty sad thing. But I mean, if you look at the current political atmosphere, if you look at the current marketing atmosphere, a lot of humans are just scumbags, and you know, it's not about judgment or saying this person doesn't agree with my values so they suck. It's about your values are harming people and you're an idiot. And when it comes to advertising drugs the way they do, that's harming people. People are taking things where they have to take another drug just to ease the side effects of that drug, and then another one. We all know where it leads. You know, everybody knows, and you know, has somebody in their family who takes handfuls of pills every day just to try to counter the effects of each other. It's a crazy world to live in. So I guess I just wanted to talk about ads for a minute. That's all. You know, it's kind of like, there's a difference when you go into a movie and you pay, say, $15 to watch a movie at the theater, that then they actually show ads before the movie, that you're still forced to watch ads, that there's advertisements all over in the theater. I just heard somebody mention that. I don't go to watch movies because it's a ripoff. I won't pay that much to see a movie, but it's sports, if I could finalize with that one, sports is nothing but marketing. The entirety of sports, football, basketball, it's all marketing. You know, they're convincing people to take a team and root for your team and buy what these players buy and get these shoes because they'll make you jump higher. And it's just lunacy, you know. It's what's happened with things like the Olympics, you know. Just a giant commercialization, all of it is. So if it moves you and you enjoy sports, I'm definitely not saying don't watch sports, and that's great if that moves you. I have no, you know, not trying to imply here that people should stop enjoying the things that they enjoy. All I'm saying is that stop and give it some thought and say, is it something you enjoy because you really need, or is it something we're distracting ourselves with? And that's a very subjective issue. So I just say fuck the ad men in the world and the advertising agencies that blatantly lie and try to fool people. There are some good companies that just get caught up in the bullshit. And unfortunately, the small mom and pop businesses are forced to advertise to try to keep themselves afloat while all the giant dominating companies, you know, take over. And this is what constantly happens, you know, consolidation. Companies get larger and larger. And that's why it is important to shop with the small guy, to make sure that the money's spread around, that it's not getting consolidated. When you're buying from a huge corporation, you're merely feeding the machine. So it's up to us, I guess. Talk to y'all later. Have a good day.